Hello, I'm a Cat, and there's not actually a reason to be nice to your dog in Minecraft, but we all do it nonetheless. The same is true for all sorts of regular humans you interact with on a day-to-day basis, including shopkeepers, but when it comes to Minecraft, the equivalent we have of those same shopkeepers are the people we treat the least well. Indeed, many people have extreme torture chambers, or they keep them in terrible conditions where they don't see daylight, and this is something that got me thinking, especially as I saw this animations from the Villagers' Rights subreddit, which I recently learned about, that many people treat their villagers poorly without even considering that they're the closest things we have to real humans in the game, and that maybe we should do so better. And so that's exactly what I want to do today, and I want to actually sell you on the reason you should treat your villagers nicely as well. Because ultimately, the reason I don't do so right now is kind of twofold. One, because it's nice to have all your villagers be in one handy, easy to access place, but the second reason is that ultimately it is kind of fun to have easy access to villagers, but also it just is very convenient that whenever I want to trade sticks with someone, I come to this guy right here, and he's always in the same place at the same time. If I want to buy XP bottles or sell rotten flesh, it's this guy right here, and by keeping them in these terrible conditions where they stand all day and they never sleep and they must trade with me all of the time, I do get the benefit of access to villagers whenever I want, but I also get the downsides of having to realize that I'm actually not being very great to these people. And so what if that is something that we changed? Indeed, it's something I am going to change by starting today. I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world by starting with the simplest thing that we can do to make them better, and just make these living quarters slightly less cramped, slightly less prison-like, and slightly more free range. Again, I'm not going to claim we're going all the way from villagers, having a terrible life to villagers living a perfectly free roam life, but I do want it to be kind of like free range villagers down here, and I want them to be able to experience what daylight is actually like. Obviously, I could do that by simply having a hole in the ceiling, but that would let mobs in, and so I'm going to replace that very same ceiling with some glass. Now, simply by adding a glass sky hole to the ceiling, all of a sudden, all of the villagers in here can actually see what time of day it is. They can appreciate, when nighttime comes to daytime, and if they want to, they could even track how many days have passed since they've been imprisoned. Honestly, again, sounds like a small improvement, but it's an important one. And today I want to talk about whether actually, moving your villagers around makes any sense, because I have, a lot of thoughts about this as something that seems silly on the surface, but actually makes, more and more deep sense the more you think about it. And so, the first place I'd like to start on this is to make the simple point of, okay, right now in Minecraft, it is widely, socially acceptable to keep your villagers however you want to. It is your call how you put those villagers in your world. And ultimately, also, by the way, look at this. Now this one guy is still going to be in one place. He's still going to be tradable with, but now he has the space, if he wants to use it, to easily, as you can see right here, stand in 6 different locations. All of them will be accessible, but now it's a little bit easier. And then we could go a step further, if we want to be so crazy, and we could actually, look at that. He's so excited to see me, now that I've given him more spaces. Now I can even give him access to a bed, and because we know that villagers love poppies, I'll even dye it with a poppy after him, and give him one of these delightful red beds to sleep in. Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway, yeah, I think that treating your villagers poorly is kind of just a default for many people, and it's a perfectly fine default. It's Minecraft is a game that for many people is about optimization, and what better to optimize than the amount of input you give to your villagers and the output they give you in the form of emeralds and other items. In my case, I love to get a good XP bottle or two. Or really, I should start buying glowstone at this point. But yeah, actually, now that I think about it, that is a very good price for glowstone, and I do already sell a lot of sticks, because these are my villagers that I come to most commonly. They are below the ground, not just for silly, torture reasons, but because this is where I keep my my bamboo farm. And given that mending, I just accepted, okay, mending is important, and I sometimes work on mega projects where I need to heal my tools quickly. I can either do so in a way where I'm getting just experience, or I could also get emeralds at the same time. And this farm allows me to pick up a whole bunch of bamboo, turn that bamboo into sticks at very large quantities, and then use those sticks to get myself both emeralds and experience. It's super nice, and I kind of feel like, if this guy is going to contribute so much to my success, shouldn't he have a nicer life too? So every time I trade with him, I could make his life slightly nicer. Start to, make him appreciate what's going on here a bit better. And so, he's alone right now. He stands there by himself, The other villagers are way on the other side of the room. What if I did something about that? This seems like an easy enough place to start. Let's make a painting, and then let's get inside here again, as much painful as that actually is, because it's deliberately designed to make sure that he doesn't get out. But let's make the painting, which I think he would appreciate the most as a lone villager, because it's probably not the Wither. It's probably not the Wither. Look at that. Now we've just given him some friends. Look how much he appreciates this. Look at the gratitude, the grateful looks he is giving me. You can just tell immediately how much better the villagers are going to feel. But more seriously, I think there is an interesting point about how lore is one of the best things you can add to your Minecraft world. And if you don't already think that, maybe this video convinces you that it's worth doing. There is no downside to me. I'm using the exact same amount of space as before, but simply by coming in here, and let's add even more light, by the way. Make sure sun gets all the way over to him. Simply by coming in here and making, honestly, the whole place a little bit more enjoyable to look at for me, as well as for them, I've done something nice for my world that also adds, if not lore, because I think you could argue this is the lore if I took this villager from his family, but now I'm at least giving a photo of his family so he can look at where he's naturally meant to be. You can create the lore on that level, but I think there's also something fun that video games kind of are designed to do on some level, which is the creation of fantasy or fiction. A lot of people think that fiction is like, well, it's just purely things that are made up, and it's true, but we all make up things all the time to get us through things. I think the amount of the world as we know it that is kind of constructed by us is something we don't even think about on a regular basis, because of, I guess, how quickly it would break you if you think about, like, you know, money isn't real, right? It's just a concept we all agree that the money that says, I'll pay the bearer on demand this amount of money, we all agree that we'll accept it as that amount of money, but it's actually just a debt to a central... But if you go into it, it's like, well, that's crazy, I don't like to imagine that, it's too much for me, and so you don't have to think about your Minecraft world in a super conceptual way, but you can think about it as like, oh yeah, I think it's nice to be nice to villagers. And I think for most people, actually, unless you have the most intense, farm in the world, you probably are going to find it nice to be nice. And so why not be nice? If being nice is so nice, then shouldn't you be nice, I guess is the simplest way to describe my thoughts right here. But yeah, now I'm thinking, this guy, by the way, he appreciates what we've done from so far, but let's top it off with his favorite flower, that his big protecting, policeman will provide for him, a good old poppy, and really solidify that, yeah, his workstation should be nice for him. And I think that's a very nice start there. But let's now do the same for my, clerics. I've got 2 clerics here. This guy is only, partially discounted for me for some reason, so I never work with him. Like, why would I pay 3 for glowstone when I can pay 1 for glowstone? It's a valid question, right? But let's take, this cleric who clearly loves certain things so much, and let's work out what it is that he likes and how we can implement that into our plan for him. So I'm pretty sure this is his... Yeah, if he reaches stocks every day, this is going to be his workstation. So if we break this workstation, we could let him out, but at the same time, it's going to cause the problem of letting these people out. So how do we deal with that? Very poorly, I imagine. Or we could just let these Fletchers go free too. You know, that'll be totally fine. Let's hope that he roams out of here first, because his workstation is now there. And then let's very quickly solve the rest of this problem before anything comes of it. So, you, over here, I've got emeralds. You know, it's kind of weird that the moment you let villagers go free, they're actually not sure what to do with it. Maybe that means that, canonically speaking, in-game, actually they prefer the torture chamber idea. You know, they prefer... You know, it's not nice to be tortured, but maybe it's nice to have this. So, my first point here is that lore is great and that you're always creating lore in your world and your life, whether you think about it or not. And so why not create a little bit of lore in your world about the fact that, yeah, you have a minimum standard of how nicely you treat your villagers, because sure, it creates a tiny bit of extra work for you, but it also creates a whole new thing to do, which can be a lot of fun. And so now this guy, look at him, he's free as a bee. And we could actually, we could fully enjoy that how it is. Or we could say that actually, he can't be fully free because I need to trade with him at some point. But we'll make his, we'll give him like a nice, like, equivalent of an executive apartment, right? What is it that this guy, who is so crucial to my operations, would actually like to make this better? Well, first of all, I think what we could do is we could start by clearing out some space and then using some nice blocks for the floor here. I think that if we're giving 6 blocks to a villager on average for our little micro studio apartments here, then I think that he would appreciate having some fancy blocks in his. He loves to, this is a guy who loves some money, and that's, I guess actually maybe the opposite if he's selling things for so cheap. But he's clearly a guy that has a lot of emeralds and, values having those emeralds. And so what if we could somehow... Oh man, my inventory is absolutely full. This never happens to me, I swear. But what if we could somehow take advantage of that, and we could use this desire that he has for good? Well, we simply just have to come to this guy, and we will do so. Just trade a bunch of these until we get enough to make an emerald block. And because I love this villager so much, I'm actually going to give him an emerald block. I was going to give him more, but now I'm seeing how expensive it is. I'll have the one emerald block to hopefully show him how much the rest of this is nice. And then again, we'll give him a red bed to show him that he's better than the other villagers. Something interesting about humans is we care about most forms of, like, I think most things that we see as measurable and, like, good or bad, we actually care about relative a lot more than we care about absolute. I think the most interesting example of this is probably, like, inequality or poverty. We always measure poverty. I think the craziest stat about this is, like, you are considered to be in poverty in the US by the federal government if you live in San Francisco and earn less than, I believe it's $116,000 a year. That number is like a few years out of date now, because sure, you're earning $116,000 a year, more than most, that's for sure. Oh, yeah, we'll let him roam around free. I don't ever trade with this guy anyway, so by letting him roam around, I can create a sense of resentment in the other villagers that it's his problem, his fault, not my fault. Anyway, yeah, we now need to make some more bamboo slabs, and we'll use these to keep this fella locked in his house right over here. So, friend, you're going to have to go back to your bed, which I'd like to remind you. Okay, so just if you could head over this way, where your table is, that would be good. And then we'll just place some blocks around it like so, and that should just about do the job. Except we need to get through this. Yeah, actually, this is a clever idea. Instead of doing what we've done here, by just having a little wall around it, we can still get through. But he feels, he has a strong instruction about where he should and shouldn't be sleeping, which is what we want. We want a strong... We don't want to keep him locked away or anything. We just want a strong implication that bad things might happen if he wasn't locked away or anything. So there we go. Easy as that. We've now... I definitely need to use some slabs or some real blocks to do that exact same thing. But I think that's very nice. Don't you? I think you should. Okay, so let's now go in here. And let's just place these blocks. One of them can go like there, and one of them can go here. And then we'll put this inside of his, what we're going to call a micro apartment. And isn't that nice? Yes, yes it is. So yeah, the second thing I'd like to say is, because I think that a lot of people think about a lot of things, in regards to how their worldview is and whether stuff like this is okay. And I think it's really interesting to have a thought of yourself about this right here and why you do it. By the way, day 7100, what a cool treat. I think a lot of people believe themselves... Ooh, yeah, this is nice. Look at this! Isn't this a cool way to decorate the walls? Don't you love this so much, isn't it? We've got the skylight in here, and now we're getting these in here too. Oh yeah, look, you can see caves. You can see, if I'm not mistaken... Where did those paintings I just broke go? Where did... What just happened to them? By the way, I also like this thing here, where you can see, because of the crops, you can actually see to the outside world. I really, really like that. And I think that it's a cool way to make this feel like it's a basement apartment, rather than a villager torture chamber. Something that's important to me. So something fun, if we could have a little discussion, which is obviously some of the point of the Let's Play, I would love to, give you a hypothetical, one that I think is fun to discuss, of what if you went back to the past and, do you think you would be on the right side of history for various different issues? The obvious and most interesting one, at least for some, is going to be slavery, right? If you go back to that time period without your current knowledge, do you think you come up on the right side of, how things are now? And for a lot of people, they say, like, yeah, it's so obvious that owning people is not an okay thing to do, but if you actually look at the sides back then, it's not like all the good people agreed that they should get rid of it and all the bad people thought the opposite. There were some people who were really paternalistic, thinking this is how you can look after people and so on and so forth, all sorts of awful things like that. But you'd see people like that, and then you'd see people on the other side being like, yeah, we're really against slavery, not because we don't think it's okay to own another human, but because we don't like the sort of people that we accept as ownable. If you look into Oregon in particular, they were an anti-slave state because they didn't like slaves, not because they didn't like slavery. By the way, where did that painting possibly go? Okay, it's over here apparently. Useful to know. Paintings are very broken right now. They're popping off walls randomly, and when they are popping off, they're appearing in water. Something to keep in mind, I guess. But yeah, I think that there are so many. I think that I would, like obviously immediately get it, but I also think like maybe I'm wrong. I think the one that would really catch me off guard is I think if you took me to the 1900s, I think I would be less anti-child labor than most people were. I think that obviously, even though children are built for the coal mines, we've proven this with the fact that so many children love Minecraft, where they go coal mining all day. Children are perfect for fitting through gaps, and there's so many reasons why children should be in coal mines, but I think it's too dangerous for them. But I think children working in general like makes sense. I think that the way we teach people for the world of work right now is we send you to school and then we say, yeah, make a whole bunch of documents in Google Docs and Microsoft Word, and then that's basically the same as working at a lot of companies, but it's just kind of not. I also think, I think that those discussions are interesting because they'll help inform your views on what is and isn't moral now, and I'm not just talking about should you enslave your villagers in a game. That's an interesting argument too. Minecraft villagers don't have feelings, but as AI gets more prevalent, do you think they will have feelings? And at what level of feelings is it not okay? I mean, in Minecraft right now, the villager goes, ow, but he doesn't get sad that he's locked in there. What if he actively put on a frowny face when he was in the villager torture chamber? Would it make it less okay to keep them in tight spaces so you could get enchantments from them? I'm not saying it would or wouldn't, but I think it's interesting, right? And yeah, similarly, I think that lots of things we're doing right now will probably definitely be looked at back upon as being weird and almost horrific in its own way. The easiest example of that I always bring up, but it's eating meat. I think that although we've done it for most of history, the moment we crack things that are indistinguishable from meat, that don't require you to grow a whole animal, a whole life of some form, and then kill it, we're going to be like, why did they do that? It's like not even that much nutritionally better, so a lot of meats are, not that healthy to eat a lot of the time, and, they did all of that massive torture just for taste, and maybe when we have AI villages, we'll be having the same discussion, but I think it's interesting to think about how many cases of this are that are happening right now that we don't even think are going to be maybe massively savage, and there's a few things I could see going one way or the other. I've always been a believer in this, concept of, the employment industrial complex. Everyone in every school, everywhere in the Western world is taught, look, you do all this learning and all this knowledge and all of this learning how to send emails and to do Word docs so that one day you can work for a company that will take 40 hours of your time and hopefully give you some good money in return. I feel like that is a crazy concept to be like, learn all this stuff so that some company can enjoy you. Personally, I've always been quite deep down the idea if I would like to work myself. I mentioned before when I was 14, I ran an advertising business, and that in itself is an interesting point that I think advertising is the great equalizer. Everyone pays the same, unlike money where everyone has relatively different amounts. Everyone pays the same for advertising, and it means that things that otherwise couldn't be free can be free and therefore accessed by everyone. But, thanks to Facebook and Meta and what's going on there, everyone now thinks it's the devil, and as someone who believes that it's actually a good thing, I look like an idiot on the internet who's just, supporting myself there. But I think that there is this, but from my advertising business, I was earning about £300 a month at one point between that and all of the other freelance things I was doing, and I was like, this is crazy. I could earn £300 a month, which is enough to buy a studio apartment where I live. I could live by myself and actually, get the most important thing to me just on this. And obviously that wasn't true. £300 a month does not get you a £300 a month apartment, because obviously there's utilities and food costs that you'd suddenly have to, there's a lot of other costs, and you'd never even get rented an apartment at that. But I was like, this is such a more desirable path, even working in some cases more than 40 hours a week, compared to working a job even at minimum wage, which was I think £6 in 2012. That would be 3-4 times more. But I wanted to work myself so much more that seemed like a better deal. Side note, by the way, I had to look it up. £6 in 2012, that's half of what it is now. Interestingly, we haven't raised our tax brackets. We've actually lowered them, not just accounting for inflation lowered, actively lowered them in real terms in a lot of cases. Very, very weird things happening in this country. But the point here is to say that, wow, look, are my villagers living a much better life now? Is this something that I'll come to think about in the future as being the great turning moment? Probably not. But it is nice that everyone's a bit better organized. It looks a little bit better. It looks like a real homely place. And I can rest well because even though there probably won't ever be AI villagers in Minecraft, knowing that I've treated at least some of them a bit better and knowing that it actually helps me out too is something that makes me feel a little warm and fuzzy inside. But anyway, this is going to be another small improvement I'd like to make. I currently have 2 villagers that just sit in their little cages with nice beds that they can never actually touch. And I've always thought, like, isn't this a shame? Isn't this something that we could easily improve? And the answer is yeah. Yeah, we could. All we've got to do is go up here. I want to probably use some slabs, actually. I should have brought those bamboo planks with me. I didn't realize this was made out of bamboo. Isn't that nice? But I'm going to use some bamboo planks of some form. There we go. Plenty of blocks of bamboo. Even a crafting table. Wow, those are never found around anywhere in this world. Put the crafting table down, make myself some planks, make those planks into slabs, and then make everything a little bit nicer for the villagers and for me. And then if we want more, we can give them more personal space there too. So now if we just place slabs along there, then the villagers have more space and can eventually even... I mean, what we could have done is we could have had the floor slab and then the top slab. Yeah, that's what I want to do instead. We'll go for the floor and the top. Yeah, I think that we are often massively, and then we'll put bottom slabs here, and then we just move this bed to the right 1 block, and we move this bed to the left 1 block, and all of a sudden, what was like this cruel, treatment of villagers that have been trapped in a little cage forever becomes a slightly less cruel treatment of villagers that admittedly still are mostly in cages, but they're in nicer cages now. Isn't that great? I think it is. And then we'll do the same over here. It does make the whole space feel a little bamboo-y, but we can blame bamboo for my poor decision-making, which is perfectly fine. Anyway, also, I'm not sure if this is okay. They might wake up on the other side of this if I do this wrong. I think that there is a really interesting thought about how we... Okay, so let's remove it. They're now both free. I think there is a lot of interesting thought on the subject of, like how well you should or shouldn't treat other people and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of ways that we accept are normal that are not, and ways that we accept are abnormal that probably actually historically are. And I think that there's an interesting way that we get that, like, all caught up. That, like, again, we have been so bad to each other for most of human history that right now things are actually pretty good in some senses, but also at the same time, we are doing some things right now that we think of as very normal that we'll look back on and say, like, oh dear God, what were we thinking? And I think that one of those things will probably be, I think that, like, the idea of going somewhere, the idea of, like, every single person in a society going to schools where they say, yeah, the normal thing you do is you find a job where you work for someone and they pay you to come into a place. Some of you will make those employers a lot of money. Some of you will send emails all day and somehow get paid enough to work in a nice, to live in a nice place. But like the idea that is the norm, that is the standard, is crazy. And I think we'll look back at it quite differently than we do right now. But that's just my thought. Anyway, I do think that it is worth asking yourself, do you treat your villagers nicely enough? And in case you don't like the answers that question gives you, I'd like to give you one last reminder, which is that if you think you're treating your villagers bad, just remember, Java players are treating them far worse, because the best way to get good trades on Java is to have your villagers constantly fit zombies. And so, don't worry, it could be far worse. But if you want a nice free-range village design, I do think that you could start with a regular village, move your villagers in. I think you could build something nicer than a village. I think it's worth genuinely considering, and this is what I did all the way back in 2014, I think it's worth genuinely considering, why not build something nice for your villagers? This is a nice mixed-use neighborhood. We've got commercial, we've got residential, we've got, like a multi-story, we've got single-family, we've got places for villagers to come and hang out from all creeds, and then we've got their big little, like the sweat factory right here, where they all come and make maps me all day. Or they did before they were all killed by zombies. But you get the idea that this is a way that you can have your villagers roam too, and you don't have to have them be in the most efficient way just because someone tells you that they should be. But with that said, I'm also a believer that it's Minecraft, do what you want. If you want to talk to your villagers, again, Java players treat them worse, and guess what? You could be treating them worse too. If you're not actively hitting your villagers multiple times a day, and then healing them with healing potions, and then bringing in the Wither just to really put the fear of God into them, then you know, actually, it could be worse. Isn't that nice? Anyway, with that said, thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed today's Let's Play. If you did, then like, favorite, and subscribe, because I'll see you in the next one. Okay. Look, it's me. The mustache definitely makes this whole video have a bit of a different tone, but we'll leave that aside for now. Goodbye.